Okay, this is the first of two videos on Chapter 4 in your text. In this one, I want to talk about supply and demand and how we use curves to determine the direction price or quantity demanded may move. And in the second video, I show how to use Excel to draw supply and demand curves when we have data. Okay, so back to the first one. We want to illustrate the law of demand. First of all, in Chapter 4, they identify many reasons why demand for a product might increase, and I'll let you read that chapter and find those things. But a couple of them might be that the unemployment rate drops and the income of people increases. And when that happens, they want to buy products, and they want to buy more than they were buying before. That would increase demand. If interest rates fell, big ticket items like automobiles and houses would increase the demand for those. Um, so there are a lot of things. Advertising. The company may have a really effective advertising campaign and are able to interest people in buying their products. So there are a lot of reasons why demand might increase. What economists do is say, to illustrate the law of demand, let us assume that from one moment to the next, the only thing that changes is price. All those other things are equal to what they were before. Other things being equal, it's called. So other things being equal, if the only thing that changes is price, then the law of demand says that the quantity demanded will move inversely to the direction of the price, which means that if the price were here in the beginning and we began lowering it, there would be an increase in the quantity demanded. That is the law of demand. Now, you might say, well, what happens if something other than price changes? And if that happens, and it happens all the time, then the demand line shifts. So, for example, if advertising increased and it was effective and it increased interest in a company's product, you would get a new demand line. It would shift. I'll make a copy here of this one and paste it and bring it over. Okay, so what happens is, at my example, advertising increased for this product, and it was effective, which means demand increased. So what changed was something other than price. It was the advertising level that changed. Whenever something other than price changes, then the demand line shifts. It moves up and down. Increasing demand moves away from the origin this way. So that's what happened in my example. And to show that on the chart, make it more effective, maybe I need an arrow that shows that that basically is what happened. That demand increase. You can barely see my arrow, but that's the idea. So if I had a particular supply line, I'll make a copy of this one here. And let's make a supply line. I got it. Okay, so now let's say the supply stayed the same. That the increase in advertising doesn't change the supplier's willingness to supply the product at a certain price. So the supply line stays the same. Well, if there's a shift in demand from here to here, can you see that the original price at equilibrium was here, the original quantity demanded was here, and now that demand has increased on a constant supply line, the price now will move up. That market force will drive the price up, and it will also increase the quantity demanded. Okay, so equilibrium now moves up. You make more, and you make them at a higher price because you had a particular supply line, and the demand shifted. Okay. Now another thing that could happen. Let me get rid of one of these demand lines. Okay. Now suppose this was our equilibrium. We have demand and we have supply, and likewise with demand, there could be a lot of things that shifts a supplier's willingness to supply the product. If their raw material costs go down, for example, that would be something that would cause a shift. If price was the only thing that changed, then their willingness to supply would be still on this line, and we would move up and down with the price change. But if something other than price changes, then the supply itself moves. An increase in supply moves to the right, a decrease would move to the left. So go back to my example. Suppose that the raw materials decrease in price. There would be a willingness of suppliers then to supply more at lower pricing. So let's copy this one and paste it somewhere. Supply line shifts. Let me move that over here. There it is. The supply line shifts. In this case, supply has increased. Demand stayed the same. Okay, so if the demand line stayed the same, but the supply increased, which means we now have more units being sold at a lower price. Here was my original market situation, and when I had an increase in supply, I went to a new market situation where the price goes down and the quantity sold goes up. Okay, so that's how these things work, and you can use these to demonstrate uh, what happens and what direction price may move. So I think in your homework you have a question about orange crops being damaged by bad weather. What might that do to the price? And you can use this concept to attack that problem. So I hope this helps out a little bit. Chapter 4 is well done. If you are patient with it, I'm sure you'll get this. And then stay tuned for the other video where I show you how to graph supply and demand using data. And if you have any questions, of course, you can come to the forum. Thank you.